The galaxy laughed at Earth's tiny warrior, a lone soldier, underestimated, outmatched. But what they didn't count on was the fury of a human willing to fight for everything. Now, as enemies surround them, one human is about to prove that size isn't what makes a warrior. It's the heart. Prepare for a battle that will change the fate of the universe. This is the story of a human who will show the galaxy what happens when you push us too far. The crowd roared with laughter. Varkuth Prime's grand arena, an interstellar coliseum where empires settled grudges and warriors earned glory, had seen blood, death, and legend. But today, it echoed with mockery. All eyes were on the creature standing at the center of the blood-stained sand, a tiny, fox-like alien barely waist-high to most of the combatants. He was thin, wiry, wrapped in lightweight armor, and a cloak that fluttered in the hot arena wind. Talek of Atari. Is that the fighter? One armored merchant guffawed from the luxury stands. That's a pet, not a warrior. The Jurgith champion, across from Talek, snarled in amusement. Towering at 10 feet tall, covered in dark, bone-plated armor, the beast carried a cleaver the size of a starship door. He stepped forward, dragging the blade through the sand. You'll entertain me for 5 seconds, tiny prey. Make it fun. Talek didn't answer. He didn't blink. He simply shifted his stance slightly, claws twitching, eyes locked on the juggernaut's throat. The bell rang. The Jurgith surged forward with all the subtlety of a meteor, cleaver raised, ready to split the Tari in half. But Talek was gone. A blur of motion. A whistle of air. He reappeared behind the Jurgith's leg and slashed. A thin line of blood traced across the giant's hamstring. The crowd gasped. The Jurgith roared and spun, but Talek was already climbing his back. Claws raked across his neck, and the warrior stumbled. Then silence. The once jeering crowd now leaned forward, stunned. The tiny pet was winning. The Jurgith, now bleeding and furious, bellowed in rage. No more tricks. You die now. He hurled Talek across the arena. The Tari hit the ground hard, coughing, limping, but alive. He pushed himself up, blood on his lips. The Jurgith raised his cleaver for the final strike. And then, a voice thundered through the arena. I warned you all not to laugh. From the shadows of the entrance gate stepped a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, human. He wore dark combat gear with a high-collared cloak fluttering behind him. His eyes were cold steel. His voice cut through the arena like a blade. Gasps rippled across the stands. Is that a human? The Jurgith paused. The cleaver hung in the air. The human stepped beside Talek, who staggered upright. Hey, little guy, he said, resting a hand on the Tari's shoulder. Miss me? Talek smirked. Took your time, Rylan. Commander Rylan Carter drew his sidearm. The crowd held its breath. No one was laughing now. The silence was crushing. From the luxury booths to the blood-soaked arena sands, thousands of alien spectators watched with frozen disbelief. Not because Talek had survived, but because a human had entered the ring. The arena protocols were clear. No interferences, no substitutions. And yet no one dared challenge him. Not even the Jurgith. Commander Rylan Carter stood tall, unmoved. His coat flared with each breeze, dust curling around his boots like smoke before fire. The Jurgith champion's voice rumbled low. You violate the rules, human. Do you think you're above the challenge? Rylan's reply was calm, deadly. I don't play by the rules of cowards who laugh at warriors smaller than them. Talek wiped blood from his chin. Told you they'd underestimate me. They always do, Rylan said, eyes locked on the towering brute. But they're about to regret it. The Jurgith laughed, a deep, guttural sound like rocks grinding in a furnace. You think your Earth tactics scare me? He pounded his chest. We've conquered stars, human. We've slaughtered your kind in border wars. Not my kind, Rylan said flatly. And then he moved. Faster than the eye could track, Rylan shot forward. A blur of dark armor and sheer velocity. His knee drove into the Jurgith's midsection with enough force to lift the creature off its feet. The crowd exploded with gasps. The alien champion smashed into the arena wall, cracking stone and steel. Dust clouded the air. Impossible, a noble whispered. He's just a baseline human. No enhancement detected, another muttered, watching from a scanning drone. That wasn't tech, that was training. As the dust settled, the Jurgith stumbled out, stunned. Commander Carter didn't wait. He advanced with surgical precision. 3 shots from his pistol slammed into the brute's shoulder, leg, and wrist, making the cleaver drop to the ground with a clang. But Carter wasn't trying to kill him. No, he was making a point. Talek circled the outside, limping but focused. Together, they moved like 2 blades of the same weapon. Rylan drawing attention with ruthless strikes, Talek cutting weak points with grace and speed. The audience realized the truth. This wasn't a mismatch. It was a lesson. The Jurgith was outclassed. Backed into a corner, he roared in desperation. "Fight me fairly." "You had your chance," Talek growled. "You laughed at me before the fight even began." "And now," Rylan added, stepping into striking distance, "you face what happens when Atari fights with his human." One final blow. Talek flipped over the brute's shoulders, slashing deep across his face. As the Jurgith staggered, blinded, Rylan's boot drove into his chest like a warhammer. The champion slammed backward into the wall and collapsed. The arena was dead silent. Then, the bell rang. A stunned voice echoed over the comms. Victory to Talek of Atari and his human partner, Commander Rylan Carter. There was no applause, no cheers, only stunned silence. Because the crowd realized something dangerous. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't luck. This was intentional. And the way Rylan scanned the crowd, like a predator marking its next prey, sent chills down every spine. Talek stood beside him, straightening his cloak. "How long have they been underestimating us?" Rylan cracked a faint grin. "Since the day they met us." Above them, in the skybox, the alien warlord who had sponsored the match leaned forward. His reptilian eyes narrowed. That human, he just disrupted the balance of everything. The advisor next to him whispered, "Should we report to the council?" The warlord's claws tapped the armrest. "No, not yet. Let them think they've made a show of power. Let them celebrate. Because soon." His gaze drifted down to the warrior pair, now walking off the arena floor. "They'll see what Earth really sent here. And it's not peace." The infirmary lights buzzed faintly. Clean, sterile, and cold. Too clean for anyone who just walked off a battlefield. Talek sat shirtless on the edge of a medbed, bruised ribs wrapped, one eye swelling shut. But he was smiling. "You shouldn't have interfered," he said. Rylan leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, his tone unreadable. "You would have died." "Maybe." Talek's tail flicked lazily. "But it would have been my death. My fight." Rylan stepped forward, voice low but firm. "You think I trained you to let them kill you for sport?" Talek's smile faded. "You trained me for war, Rylan. This wasn't war." "No," Rylan said, "but it was a message. One they've been itching to send." Talek glanced away. "That the Tari are weak. That humans are soft. That our bond is laughable." Rylan's jaw tensed. They were wrong. The medbot finished its scan and buzzed approval. Talek stood slowly, testing his side with a wince. "Still hurts like hell." "Good," Rylan said. "Means you're alive." They exited the infirmary to a very different kind of silence than before. The corridors of the arena complex were empty. Too empty. "They're watching us," Talek murmured. Rylan didn't slow down. "Let them." As they turned a corner, a figure stepped from the shadows. Not a soldier. Not an arena official. An ambassador. Elegant robes. Pale, shimmering skin. Eyes that had seen centuries of galactic politics. "I am Lysarian of the Galactic Accord," she said, inclining her head with respect. "Commander Carter. Talek of Atari. You've made quite the impression." Rylan didn't respond. Talek narrowed his good eye. "If you're here to scold us, get in line." Lysarian gave a soft, practiced smile. "Quite the opposite. Some of us saw what happened, and saw past the theater." Rylan's eyes narrowed. "Go on. The balance of power in this quadrant is delicate. The Jurgith rule through intimidation. But your actions today? You shattered a piece of that image. You exposed their weakness." Talek folded his arms. So now you want what? An alliance? A photo op? No, Lysarian said simply. I want to offer you both a place in something larger. Rylan raised an eyebrow. Larger than what? The Accord's covert program, she said quietly. Operatives who don't answer to flags or empires. Who protect peace where war would normally erupt. You'd be independent but dangerous. Talek laughed softly. You mean uncontrollable? Lysarian gave a wry smile. Call it what you will. But you've proven one thing very clearly. When humans and Tari fight together, there's no force in this galaxy that can predict the outcome. Rylan exchanged a look with Talek. The silence was heavy. Lysarian turned, leaving a secure datapad on the table behind her. The offer stands. Accept or walk away. But understand this. After today, there will be enemies who fear you and others who will never stop hunting you. She disappeared into the shadows. Talek picked up the datapad, flipping through mission data, high-priority threats, encrypted files. Looks like they've been busy. Rylan stepped up beside him. And so are we now. Talek looked at him. You're in. Rylan gave a rare smile. They picked the wrong species to provoke. And just like that, Earth and Tari, mocked only hours ago, had become the most unpredictable force in the galaxy. A force that didn't follow rules. A force that fought back. The hum of the engines was a constant pulse beneath their feet. Rylan stood at the command bridge of the Striker, the first of its kind, a stealth-class vessel, outfitted with every human and Tari innovation that could be crammed into its sleek hull. He'd thought he'd seen war before, but nothing like this. Talek stood next to him, leaning against the console, his tail twitching with irritation. We're being too cautious. We should hit them now. Rylan didn't take his eyes off the star charts before him. Patience is part of the plan. Talek scoffed. The plan, right. And what's the plan exactly? To wait until every sector of the Jurgith Empire knows we're coming and locks down every fleet in range. Yes, Rylan said, his voice steady. The Jurgith need to think they have control. They're not expecting us to hit them where it hurts. Not yet. And where does it hurt? Talek asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. Rylan tapped a console, bringing up an encrypted transmission. It was a data dump from the Galactic Accord's covert ops, their military production world. It's where they've been building their new fleet, untraceable and undetected. Until now. Talek raised an eyebrow. And you think we'll get past their defenses? We'll make them believe we're a threat to something else, Rylan replied. Let them scatter their forces, then strike their heart while they're distracted. Talek's grin returned. So, we let them make the first move. Exactly, Rylan said, his eyes cold. The Jurgith might think we're reckless, but I'd rather they underestimate us than prepare for what's coming. The stars outside the window of the bridge flickered as they transitioned into the next sector, a massive gravitational distortion on the edge of the galaxy. Talek's expression shifted from playful to serious. They're going to come after us hard once they realize what we're doing. How many ships are we bringing? Rylan smirked, turning to the array of ships positioned around them. 3, he said. All stealth-capable. All packed with human and Tari firepower. You'll have to share the fun with me. Talek chuckled darkly. Fine by me, as long as I get to break some of them in half. Before Rylan could respond, the comms officer spoke up, the calm urgency of her voice cutting through the tension. Commander, we're receiving a high-priority transmission. It's from the Galactic Accord. Rylan exchanged a brief glance with Talek before turning to the screen. The message flickered to life, displaying Lysarian's familiar face. Rylan. Talek. Lysarian's voice was calm, but there was something in her eyes, something urgent. The Jurgith have just mobilized. They've caught wind of your plan, and they're deploying their entire fleet to counteract your strike. Rylan's jaw tightened, his mind already working the angles. I thought we had more time. We did, Lysarian said, but there's another wrinkle. Your mission has attracted more attention than we expected. There are factions within the Galactic Accord that view your actions as a threat to the fragile peace. Some will be supporting the Jurgith. Talek snorted. We're making enemies already. Shouldn't be a surprise. Rylan didn't move. His voice was ice. Who's supporting them? Lysarian hesitated, then gave a terse response. The Tkara, mostly. They've long desired control over the trade routes the Jurgith dominate, and they see your strike as a way to weaken their position. Rylan's eyes narrowed. So they want to see us fail. Lysarian nodded. They'll be watching. Waiting. Rylan straightened up. What's the alternative? Do we back down? You can't, Lysarian said firmly. Backing down now would be worse than fighting. The Accord needs you to succeed. This is a turning point. If you fail, the Jurgith win, and the galaxy falls into their hands. Rylan's gaze flickered over to Talek, who was already pacing, his impatience palpable. Then we don't fail. Talek grinned. That's the spirit. It's not a question of if we hit them. It's when and how hard. Rylan's lips curled into a rare smile, though his eyes remained sharp. We hit them first. We hit them fast. And we make them regret ever thinking they could outlast us. The screen went dark as Lysarian's transmission ended, leaving a lingering silence in its wake. Outside the striker, the black expanse of space seemed calm, deceptively so. But beneath that stillness, war was coming. And humanity? They were ready to prove they weren't just some underdog. They were the force that would break the galaxy wide open. The striker glided through the void, its stealth systems making it virtually invisible against the backdrop of the distant stars. Inside, Rylan stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the holographic map flickering before him. The data had just updated. Several Jurgith fleets were now within striking distance of their target. He felt the weight of the situation bearing down on him. The clock was ticking. Talek's sharp voice broke the silence. The Jurgith are scrambling. They know we're here. His eyes gleamed with anticipation. Time to give them a show they won't forget. Rylan took a breath, his fingers hovering over the controls. Not yet. We wait for the signal. If we jump too early, we'll be spotted before we hit the target. We need to let their ships spread thin. They're too confident, Talek said, leaning closer to the console, his tail twitching. They think they're invincible. That arrogance, Rylan knew, was their advantage. The Jurgith were infamous for their overconfidence, and it was about to cost them everything. Rylan's mind raced through the details of the plan, making adjustments on the fly. A few wrong moves, and they'd be scattered across the stars, outgunned and outmanned. Once we hit their fleet's heart, everything else will fall into place, Rylan said, his voice low and focused. As the minutes dragged on, the tension in the command center grew. The crew worked silently, each person aware of what was at stake. Outside, the black expanse of space seemed endless, a haunting reminder of the vastness of the Jurgith empire they were about to breach. Talek's voice broke through once more, tinged with impatience. They're splitting up. This is the moment. If we don't strike soon, we'll lose the advantage. Rylan nodded. I'm aware. But we need to wait for the main fleet to be in position. If we hit their defenses too early, they'll rally before we can land the blow. The time seemed to stretch on forever. Rylan could feel his heart racing, but his resolve remained steady. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy fleet. This was about proving that humanity, no, all the underdogs of the galaxy, could stand against the most powerful force the galaxy had ever known. Suddenly, the console flashed. The signal was live. Ready to drop out of stealth, Rylan said, his voice sharp. Do it, Talek replied, eyes burning with excitement. In an instant, the striker powered up, its cloaking field flickering as it emerged from the shadows of deep space. Before the Jurgith fleet could react, Rylan gave the order. Target their command ship. Full assault. The striker's weapons systems hummed to life, unleashing a barrage of concentrated energy blasts that tore into the Jurgith command vessel. The enemy ship was larger, heavily fortified, but Rylan's attack wasn't aimed to destroy it. Not yet. It was a warning. A message. The explosion rocked the command deck, throwing Talek off his feet. Damn, that's just the first volley? I love this ship. Rylan's hands moved across the controls with precision. We need to disable their communications first. We want chaos, not a direct fight. Right. Chaos, Talek said with a smirk. He was already tapping into the secondary weapon system, setting it up for a series of disabling shots aimed at the Jurgitha's fleet communications. Before the Jurgith could regroup, Ryland's fleet descended like a storm. 3 stealth ships, the Striker, the Ravager, and the Spectre, appeared out of nowhere, their assault focused on key targets, communication hubs, supply depots, and the enemy's fleet command structure. Explosions lit up the dark expanse of space as each blast shook the Jurgitha's confidence. Their fleet scattering, Talek observed. They're panicking. Let's make them regret ever thinking they could challenge us. Ryland didn't smile. His face remained hard and focused. Stay on target. We can't let them regroup. Not now. A sudden, sharp alarm rang through the command center. A Jurgith destroyer had broken through the chaos, charging directly toward them. It was a hulking mass of armored steel, far larger than anything Ryland had anticipated. They're coming for us, the tactical officer reported. It's got heavy shields, and they're closing fast. Ryland's mind raced. He knew the odds weren't in their favor. The Jurgith ship was a beast of war, capable of annihilating them in seconds. Talek, we need to outmaneuver it, Ryland said, his voice low. Get the Spectre to break left. Hit them from the flank. We're not giving them a straight shot. Talek's grin returned, wider than ever. I was hoping you'd say that. He was already sending orders to the other ships. Breaking left, Spectre, you know the drill. Ryland's fingers flew across the console, pulling up their defensive grid and calculating their options. He couldn't afford a direct confrontation with the destroyer, not with the limited firepower they had left. Their best bet was speed and precision. With the fleet in motion, the Striker dodged and weaved through enemy fire, the ship groaning under the pressure of high-speed maneuvers. Ryland could feel every turn, every tilt of the ship's hull. It was a dance, one that required all his skill to survive. Suddenly, the ship lurched, a series of jolts sending the crew tumbling. Ryland's breath caught in his throat as the alarms blared. A heavy blast had hit their port side, tearing through a shield and striking the outer hull. Damage report. Ryland barked. We've got a breach in the outer hull. The engineer's voice came through strained. It's isolated, but we're losing energy. Talek cursed, but Ryland remained calm. Shut down non-essential systems. We're not losing this fight. As the battle raged on, the Jurgith fleet's initial confidence began to crumble. Their superior numbers meant nothing against the fury and cunning of the human-led forces. Ryland's plan was in full swing: chaos, confusion, and the relentless drive of humanity's determination. They had just one thing left to prove. No matter how big or powerful their enemies were, no one could stand against the rage of a galaxy that had finally learned how to fight back. The Striker hummed with intensity as Ryland's hands gripped the controls. The chaos outside was deafening. Explosions rocked the void of space as enemy ships scattered in all directions, their once coordinated formation now shattered. But the fight wasn't over yet. The Jurgith were regrouping, and that meant one thing: they weren't done pushing back. The tactical display blinked red. A fresh wave of Jurgith reinforcements had arrived, larger ships, their weapons primed, making a direct beeline for Ryland's fleet. His heart pounded in his chest, but his face remained impassive. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, and there was no turning back now. We've got incoming. Talek's voice rang out from the comms. Big ones. They're not giving up. Ryland's mind raced. Their ships were smaller, faster, and more agile, but they were heavily outnumbered. If they stayed in this skirmish too long, they'd be surrounded. He couldn't afford to let that happen. Not now. Focus fire on their engines. If we cripple their speed, we can outmaneuver them, Ryland ordered, his voice cold and methodical. Acknowledged, came Talek's response, sharp as ever. Breaking formation and locking onto their lead ship. The Striker darted to the left, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts that sliced through the empty space where they'd been a second earlier. Ryland adjusted the trajectory, his eyes scanning the incoming fleet. He needed a way to disrupt their coordination, to strike fear into them, just like he had with their command ship. Disrupt their communications, Ryland ordered. Send them a message they won't forget. Already on it, Talek said. His fingers flew across the console, sending a stream of electromagnetic pulses designed to scramble the Jurgatha's fleet communications. The striker systems pulsed with energy, sending out bursts of interference that would throw the Jurgath into disarray. But the Jurgath weren't like other species. They adapted quickly, and within seconds their ships regrouped. Rylan could see it happening. Like a well-oiled machine, the Jurgath were adjusting to his attack. "Damn, they're not breaking," Talek muttered. "They've got their best ships out there now." "Then it's time to take out the heart of their fleet," Rylan said, his voice unwavering. He stared at the map, pinpointing the largest of the Jurgath ships, a colossal dreadnought that was inching closer. This ship was the key. If they could cripple it, the Jurgath would lose their coordination entirely. "Talek, I need you to get us close enough for a direct hit on their weapons array. We're going in." The tension in the air was palpable. The striker was now weaving through an ocean of enemy fire, and every moment felt like an eternity. Rylan's mind was razor-sharp as he guided the ship closer to the dreadnought. They were about to break through their defenses, and he had to be ready for anything. "Adjusting course," Talek called out. "We've got an opening." In a blur of motion, the striker shot forward, its engines roaring to life. The Jurgath dreadnought loomed ahead, massive and menacing, its weapon systems charging up for the final blow. The striker was a speck in comparison, but Rylan didn't care. This wasn't about size, it was about speed, precision, and relentless will. "Target locked," Rylan said, his voice calm but edged with urgency. "Prepare for impact." A deafening explosion shook the ship as the striker unleashed a barrage of concentrated fire. The blast hit the dreadnought's main weapons array, and the shockwave sent ripples through the surrounding fleet. The Jurgath ship staggered, its shields faltering under the force of the attack. "Direct hit," Talek shouted. "We've got their weapons offline." Rylan didn't hesitate. "Keep firing. We're not done yet." The striker continued its assault, peppering the dreadnought with every weapon at its disposal. The Jurgath ship shuddered under the sustained fire, and for the first time in the battle, the Jurgath fleet hesitated. Their prideful arrogance faltered, and uncertainty rippled through their ranks. "We've crippled their flagship," Rylan said, his voice laced with satisfaction. "Now let's finish this." But as the Jurgath flagship burned, Rylan's heart skipped a beat. In the distance, a massive new threat emerged, a black ship, sleek and imposing. The ship's silhouette loomed ominously in the void, far larger than anything the Jurgath had fielded. This was something new, something Rylan hadn't anticipated. "I'm reading massive energy signatures," the tactical officer reported. "It's charging up for something big." Talek let out a low whistle. "Well, that's not good." Rylan's mind raced. The new ship wasn't just big, it was powerful. The energy readings were off the charts. If they didn't stop it now, they would lose everything they had fought for. "Deploy everything," Rylan ordered. "Target its core. We can't let that ship launch whatever it's preparing." The striker dove into the fray once more, maneuvering through a barrage of incoming fire. But the alien ship wasn't going down easily. Its shields were unyielding, and its firepower was devastating. They were pushing Rylan's crew to their limits, but there was one thing the Jurgath would never understand. Humans didn't know how to quit. "We've got this," Rylan muttered under his breath, sweat trickling down his forehead. The final assault had begun, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The striker's systems glowed with intensity as Rylan locked onto the enemy ship's power core. This would be their last stand, and they would make it count. The silence aboard the striker was suffocating. The echoes of the battle still reverberated through the ship, as if the very walls themselves mourned the loss of so many good soldiers. Varric, the tiny warrior who had once been seen as little more than a curiosity, now stood in the heart of the command room, his eyes filled with a storm of emotions. "All systems are online," reported the tech officer, her voice breaking through the tension. "We're ready for the final jump." Varric nodded, but it wasn't his mind that was occupied with the mechanics of their escape. His thoughts were elsewhere, on the battlefield, on the things they had seen. The enemy had been vast, numerous, and brutal, but they had underestimated the tenacity of humanity. And now, That very spirit was about to shine through one last time. "Prepare the team," Varric said quietly, his voice steady despite the immense pressure bearing down on him. "We end this now." Captain Hart, standing beside him, shot him a sharp look. "Are you sure about this? It's too dangerous. We don't have a choice. This is it, Captain. We either fight or we lose everything." Hart sighed, a deep weight settling on her shoulders. She had seen it all: alien conquerors, impossible odds, endless battles. But nothing had prepared her for the strength of the human spirit and the resolve that Varric carried. Despite everything. "Get the striker into position. We're going in. Full throttle. No hesitation." The ship lurched as it made the jump, the void swallowing them whole. As they emerged into the war-torn quadrant where the final confrontation would take place, the sight was nothing short of apocalyptic. The enemy's fleet was massive, more ships than Hart had ever dreamed of, all looming like a storm ready to devour them. "We're surrounded," said the navigator, panic creeping into their voice. Varric clenched his fists. "They thought they could intimidate us. But they don't know what humanity is capable of when we're pushed to the edge. We fight because we have no other choice. We fight for our home." With that, the ship surged forward, cutting through the chaos. Every single warrior aboard knew their role, and they executed it flawlessly. Despite the overwhelming odds, there was a precision in their movements, a deadly grace, as if they had been trained for this moment their entire lives. Hart turned to Varric. "Are you ready?" "I was born for this," he replied, stepping forward to face the crew, a fierce fire in his eyes. "We fight together. We show them what happens when they laugh at humanity." And then, in a flash of light, the striker dove straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. The battle unfolded like a storm of violence. The striker's advanced weaponry tore through enemy shields like paper. The crew, led by Varric, fought with an unmatched intensity, each action driven by sheer willpower. But then, as they pushed deeper into the heart of the fleet, something unexpected happened. The enemy's fleet commander, a towering alien being draped in ornate battle armor, appeared on the tactical screen. His eyes locked onto Varric's. "You think you can defeat us, little warrior?" the alien sneered. "You are nothing." Varric's expression remained cold. "You're wrong. We are everything. We are the force that will never bow to anyone. Not even you." He turned to the crew, his voice rising with an intensity that matched the fury in the air. "This is the moment. This is where it ends. No retreat. No surrender. We fight until we win. Together." The final battle began. The striker moved like a living entity, cutting through the enemy forces with ruthless precision. Each blow they struck was another blow for humanity, a testament to the strength of their will. The alien commander, now desperate, attempted to launch a counterattack, but Varric was ready. With a swift command, Varric activated the ship's most devastating weapon, a singular pulse designed to decimate the heart of any fleet. The pulse exploded outward, catching the enemy commander off guard, their entire flagship crumbling into nothingness. As the alien fleet disintegrated around them, Varric stood tall, his heart pounding in his chest. The battlefield was silent now, save for the fading echo of victory. The captain approached him, her voice full of admiration. "You did it. We did it." Varric's eyes were filled with a fierce, determined pride. "Humanity did it. We showed them who we are." And with that, the war was won.